back to Cyberspace Investigations. In 1989, history was made when the first 16-bit consoles were released to the masses, this being the Genesis or Mega Drive and a couple other competitors. The following year, Nintendo would release their own 16-bit console, the Super Nintendo, and the race for the most popular console would begin. But Sega couldn't just do it on their own. They had to have an ace in the hole like Nintendo did with Mario. In the 80s, after the crash in 1983, it took a couple years before gaming returned. After Nintendo released the Famicom in 84, then the NES in America in 85, the market bounded back, bigger and better than ever. Other competitors rose to face the Nintendo monopoly on the gaming scene. One of these competitors was Sega, mainly known for making arcade games at the time. With the SG-1000 and then more notably the Master System, Sega became the leading force against Nintendo. However, there still wasn't actually any chance they could beat the giant. Sega, while the leading competitor, was still in a relatively small section of the market in comparison to Nintendo's majority. Sega did have a mascot, Alex Kidd, with a few games that were comparable to Mario 1 in some ways, if not a little more complex. They didn't translate into quality though, and I feel like this left Sega lacking in terms of a premier game. When the Mega Drive released in 1989, Sega marketed it as an arcade playing machine available to play at home. It was a decent marketing strategy, and at this point Alex Kidd was still being pushed as the largest mascot icon Sega had available to them. They launched the Genesis with Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle, along with some other titles like the amazing Space Harrier 2, my favorite Genesis game outside of Sonic. This would make sense for a while, but Genesis sales weren't enough to defeat Nintendo. What Sega needed was a mascot, a real one. Sega got to work. They had competitions within the company to create a concept for their mascot. Over time, there was Mr. Needlemouse, Phil the Rabbit, and Theodore Roosevelt in pajamas, or what I suspect is Dr. Robotnik's father. Either way, this Roosevelt design was popular and kept, whereas most of the designs and ideas, except for an armadillo that would be repurposed into Mighty just 1 year later, were scrapped. However, it is possible to theorize that Fields would eventually turn into Cream the Rabbit many years down the road, but since the designs are so off, it may have just been that they're both rabbit characters and the ears were both meant to do something in gameplay, and nothing more than a coincidence. Finally, the company settled on Naoto Oshima's design for a blue hedgehog that would be given the name Sonic. Finally, the character was made, but what about the game? For this, they hired the extraordinary new developer Yuji Naka to develop it. He wasn't the only member of the team, obviously, but he was the most pronounced and most important one. Naka was a revolutionary developer from the get-go. He had entered competitions and made early prototypes for 3D games in about 89 or 90. That's insane, given that it wouldn't be another 5 years until 3D was considered mainstream for console games. He was brought on to actually develop it, and they had one idea in mind: be the opposite of Mario. See, Mario gameplay is 2D and relatively slow, precise platforming. What Naka thought Sonic could be is the opposite of that. He wanted to solve the problem created by Mario 1. In that game, you had to replay 1-1 over and over again every time you restarted, and Naka thought it was painfully slow. So he thought they needed to make a character fast enough to alleviate that boredom that would have been gotten otherwise. See, this led to the design of Sonic's fast-natured gameplay, except there's just one problem. The issue? Nintendo already fixed it. In Mario 1. Naka seemingly didn't know about the warp pipes or the skip in 1-1, as it takes 10 times the time to beat Sonic 1 as it does Mario 1. Granted, if Naka wasn't into Nintendo Power or he never completely played Mario enough to understand the skips, I could see how he could come to this conclusion. We'll circle back to this when we get to the level design. The one thing Sonic really did have over Mario was the sheer speed you could go. Keyword there is could. The physics were impressive and decently made as a starting point for later entries to build upon, but the level design would once again hamper it. On June 21st, 1991, Sonic the Hedgehog would release to the public in North America first, followed by a Japan release. They really showed that Sonic was aimed at Western audiences, and there you go, that's the way to do it. The earlier Genesis pack-in Altered Beast would be replaced by Sonic a little later, courtesy of Tom Kalinske and his charisma-swaying Sega of Japan. This helped the company not only sell more games, but more consoles in general due to the fact that the deal was too good to be true at the time. Marketing for the game consisted of constant comparisons to Nintendo's upcoming Super Mario World release and the impending release of the Super Nintendo along with it. Sega would have to step up their game to keep their ever-growing market share in the gaming space. Ads would show how fast Sonic was and how slow Mario was, or how cool Sonic was compared to Mario. Typical 90s things, I would say. These ads worked as more and more people purchased Genesis consoles. The game could never live up to the hype of the marketing truly, as many of its aspects fall flat when compared to what was selectively shown in marketing. The fast-paced action shown in commercials ended mainly being from 2 of the 3 zones where speed was really available, Green Hill and Starlight Zone. Green Hill is the iconic level that most Sonic fans are sick and tired of being in every game. We get that it's iconic, but when nothing new is being done with it because of that, it's just annoying. That being said, the original is iconic for a reason. The striking design, the early philosophy, later expanded and evolved in Sonic 2, the great music. This zone features all the aspects you would expect from a great Sonic level. There is a case to be made that the slight bit of false advertising in relation to the speed in this game specifically could be argued that the level design could be considered a balance to that. Sonic 1 has level design that was revolutionary and unique at the time, with sprawling massive levels, multiple pathways, slopes that did function with gravity and physics, and not to mention the enemy variety that trumped Mario's by a long shot. Starlight is a weird case. It's a well-known fact that this game was rushed out the door, a staple of the franchise nowadays, but back then this really only resulted in a few things. Starlight in particular feels a bit unfinished when compared to the rest of the game, and the fact that there's only one enemy you can kill normally in this stage is a bit strange. It makes the level feel empty, and the background doesn't help with this at all either. The music here doesn't fit in at all with an upbeat track in this area that looks to be more desolate. The third zone that was used much less in marketing was Spring Yard. This is the third best zone. Starlight beats it just barely, but Spring Yard is more finished. It has aspects of Green Hill and the slower zones we'll later cover, but at a mixture level that's tolerable instead of insufferable like Labyrinth. Marble Zone is certainly a fun one to think about. This is the zone right after Green Hill, and man, is there some whiplash from that. Platforming takes over here, and the pace slows to a miserable crawl as you platform across slow-moving obstacles. I don't actually mind it too much, and the music here is up there with Green Hill. At least I think it's one of the unsung Sonic greats from the classic era. Labyrinth, though, what a dumpster fire of a level. We could just honestly show any picture of a depressed guy, and you'd get how I feel playing Labyrinth Zone. Yikes.
And you know, some of the spike traps in Labyrinth Zone just really make the experience of playing this game. You know, it almost makes me want a second Labyrinth Zone, or a third one, or just maybe any other zone except for Labyrinth, because Labyrinth is literally one of the worst Sonic zones in existence.
This is the first water stage in the series, and whoa, what a way to start off. Some of the slowest, most irritating, and utterly cheap level design in the entire classic series. Compounded here by the third act with drags on and has looping segments that require obscure trial and error to escape on your first playthrough. Speaking of third acts, this is the only classic game that has legitimate third acts that aren't just a boss fight. It really makes the game drag longer than it should. Even in Green Hill, the third act is tiring because it doesn't look any different from the last 2 acts. Each third act has a boss fight, usually against Robotnik, actually only against Robotnik, which are very easy when they come up. Scrap Brain is the final main zone, and it's a mechanical wasteland. Sure, it's fine, a decent final level, but I never hear anybody talk about it this way when they talk about Metropolis or Death Egg or Doomsday. I think it's just forgettable in the face of way more iconic and irritating zones later on in the series. But the third act, it's Labyrinth Zone Act 4. My god, this horrible zone that nobody likes and nobody wanted, and it just makes you play another round. Wow. I mean, there is some places in the level that make it go by a little faster, but then A lot of times, you'll get to parts in the level where you'll just start drowning before you grab an air bubble, which means you have to listen to the beginning of Scrapbrain's music again and again and again, and it makes it insanity. Just, oh god, no, not at all. I hate this zone. We then go to the final zone and fight an okay final boss against Robotnik and save the day, but I see a distinct lack of pink flowers. Yep, it's time to talk about those special stages. In this game, there are 6 mystical Chaos Emeralds that live on South Island, the main setting of the game. Each of the special stages are a drug trip all on their own, spinning courses with birds and fish in the background. I don't know what the designer of this special stage were thinking, but these aren't all that fun. I mean, they work, but some of them are confusing and I'd rather have blue spheres or maybe even the half pipe. Nope, not having the half pipe at all. Once collecting all the Chaos Emeralds, you'll get the good ending, where flowers now exist in Green Hill. Not a great ending for all that work, I'd say. Well, it's a game from 1991, what I expect. The music is a high point of this series, and especially this game. Despite the unfitting tracks in certain zones, Labyrinth is something I can bop my head to. It's impressive that even in this first game, the music was at a quality level that I wouldn't have expected. That's because of composer Masato Nakamura. He's the founder of Dreams Come True, a J-pop band that has made some of the most iconic classic Sonic tracks of all time. He would return for Sonic 2 just 1 year later, and there was some interesting drama between Sega and the band in the early 2000s due to them wanting the rights to Sonic 1 and 2's music, kinda like how Sega never dealt with the Michael Jackson situation in Sonic 3. However, in this scenario, Sega pulled through and they came to an agreement, allowing the game to keep its original audio with no legal issues. Honestly, if this became a problem and the only classic game able to be released properly was Sonic CD, I don't know how the world would take it. The lasting legacy of Sonic 1 is an interesting one. Many people think it's one of the best of the series, but when taking a closer look at the trends it set, most of them were abolished by the time of Sonic 3. The 6 zones on display here only showcase a small taste of the speed Sonic games would later achieve.
While it is an alright game, I think it's only about a 75 for me. The game is just padded with so many slower-paced, boring sections, and Labyrinth Zone just breaks it entirely in half, with all of the cheap tricks and just beginner's traps that are littered throughout the game, even as early as the spike glitch you can encounter in Green Hill Zone, possibly making cheap deaths and also not wanting you to play anymore. Which is why I would rather recommend skipping this one and going straight to Sonic 2 or 3, which are astronomically better games overall that we will cover at a later date. Well, that's all I've got for this one, so see you guys next week for another great program.